Go to programs, please. Thank you. So let's go to PR deductions and liabilities. She just gave you access to that little thing that you didn't have before. Okay, so let's go to the, now. So now we need to make some executive decisions on really which of these we want to try and do something on. So hit the additional info tab, so just so you know how it's set up. The system can send anything to AP. Taxes, union benefits, union deductions, 401k stuff, garnishments, you name it. If I'm processing on a payroll check as either a deduction or a liability, it is available to be one of these AP things. Okay, so just think globally. I'm not restricted from anything. Okay, so notice on federal withholding, I can say yes, let's use that PR to AP update thing. Okay, so if you go to the grid view over here, here's the name of all these things. Now scroll to the right, please, and it's quite a ways over here. Scoot a little bit further. Okay. Right, so yeah, pull this column so it's sitting next to the name of that thing. So let's pull it over just a little bit. Oops, yeah, you'll have to use this little scroller since all these grids are locked unless we unlock.
So just scroll?
Yeah, just the other way. The other way. I need that column right here.
Okay, so this column?
Yeah, just hit your little arrow here.
Arrow.
Click, 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 click. I just need it scooched up.
Oh, okay. We're not moving the whole column.
Nah, I'm not ready to
Yeah.
terminal. But what I'm kind of saying is, to make this happen, this is the setup in the system. I can say yes, no by checking this, and then if I do that, I got to put in a vendor to say which is the vendor. If I'm going to send the stuff to AP, yes. And then on an employee-by-employee basis, I can overwrite this vendor. Because sometimes with garnishments or corporate garnishments or something like that, each check has to be mailed to a specific person because the court order says Don owes the garbage company $500 because I haven't been paying them to collect my garbage. And now they're going to grab from my check, and I got to pay waste management to get my garbage picked up or something. So, like I said, basically all the deductions and all the liabilities. So if this was union stuff, I could point them to unions and then override it and stuff. So this is the point we're at from a management decision. Do we even want to use this? This is not mandatory. If we do want to use it, which ones do we want to use it on? Because Vista allows you to use it on anything.
I would say, would you want to, especially in the testing phase, if you were to select the stuff that you pay on the 941 to push over, because then you could do your process and then verify what's actually sitting that has been pushed over. So basically the 941, the child support, and
I think we could try the 401k.
And the 401k.
May as well test it, and if it turns out not.
So
Yeah, because I think that
the FSA and the HSAs go to a different bank account. But that's another thing that I post every month and reconcile.
Yeah,
And that's
but
usually
you're
in
not
the journal
posting it.
entry.
Yeah, but right now you're not posting it through the.
No, everything's done, man.
Not your file.
Well, no, you're not posting those transactions through like a check. You're just doing a true up at the end of the month, right? So it's a matter of,
Right, we're doing the
especially
payroll
with the bank
deduction to
reconciliations
an account.
and the way that the cash management works in Viewpoint, you have to, you can't just go in and do a general journal. You can't do a general journal entry and hit the cash account. That's not the way Vista works. It has to flow through.
Cash management or AP.
So it's just a matter of, ultimately maybe testing it out and see how it works. I don't know enough on the HSA and FSA.
Well, it's pulling, because they do the payroll deduction, they do the funding file every week. And then that goes it automatically gets taken or to
It gets pulled
the
from
different account.
from
not
the
the
bank
1010,
account and then
right.
swept through the 1010 account.
Yeah.
So it's just, I mean, it's something that we can try through the test and see how it
How
works.
complicated we
And if you
make
just
it.
wanted to start with 401k and see how it works, you will understand how it works. And you could roll it out to taxes or unions or this or that or anything. But,
Yeah, the only
if you
thing,
wanted to set it up with one thing and test it, so you'd really know how before you started setting it up with a whole bunch of stuff, you certainly could do whatever you
It's
want.
kind of, would be nice to test it, 941 is weekly,
child
401k is bi-weekly, child support is weekly, what's monthly?
the garnish.
Just garnishment. But it would be nice to test one of the, each frequency.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any problem testing the garnishment for a monthly. I just think that we probably won't do it.
Right.
Because
Just manually.
Because the thing is it's not necessarily who it's associated with, it's the fact that it's going to sit out. We'll have to you'll set those individuals up as vendors, and then you'll literally have money sitting out there under that vendor when they run an AP aging that,
Not if you push it out once a month. Usually people, like on a Friday, they push it and sweep it all in one day.
so what it'll do, if you set it up for monthly, it'll sit, and if $100 is taken each week, when I sit and say, okay, push it on a monthly basis, it'll sit and go back and say, okay, for the month you took 400.
Yeah, the frequency right here,
Okay.
only for the ones that we want to have M for monthly. They'll sit in payroll until the end of that fourth pay period in a month, and then she'll say, push my monthly things over. That will create a batch on that Friday, because usually people do it as part of the Friday mop-up of that week's payroll. It'll create that open payables, they'll run that dummy EFT, so it'll be an in and an out on Friday.
Do we
Once
have,
a month, it will be the sum of the 4 pay periods before.
do we have any flexibility on that fourth payroll? Just because we have to have one check that has a little bit of
Has a due date?
special, it has to be cut, and the person has to receive it by the end of the month. So depending on how the month flows and that fourth pay period hitting,
Mhm.
it may be that's the last day of the month or close to the last, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So is there any,
Well, it's really up to you what monthly means. Does that make sense?
okay,
Monthly means just monthly to Vista. When you run a monthly thing, it's kind of up to you.
Right. Or you could do.
You will have to
30th
tell the
and-
system, I'm running the monthly thing.
okay.
Anything
Okay.
in the system,
So
it
then
will
we-
run.
So you want to do taxes, child support, 401k, and then garnishment for a
Yeah, I can't think
monthly
of anything else. That's a
monthly push.
monthly.
Then we kind of get a weekly, a bi-weekly, and a monthly to test.
Okay. So federal, you're thinking weekly, of course, because that's, you got to do weekly, correct? So check. Enter. F4, do you have IRS as a vendor? Do we know? Do you
Yeah,
have-
they are.
Okay.
Do you know who the IRS?
Maybe internal.
There they are. One. Okay. Now, do I want one invoice for employee? Heck no. Okay. But that's where if it was a garnishment and you were kicking out checks, you'd have a unique check per employee. So sometimes that has to happen. With taxes, no. Yeah. Okay. Enter.
Enter.
F4, pay type. This is going to be what's called expense. So, which is an AP payable, because I'm not job costing this. F4, this is going to be W, okay? Because this will be done weekly, okay, for each weekly payroll. So, okay. Scroll back
Oh, there it is.
just a little bit further. Okay. Okay. So now let's do the next one. So FICA, check. So basically, these are the 4 columns that need data for anything. Oh, no, once you do that, you have to go back
Oh, you have to go.
Anything in yellow, just FYI, are kind of required things in Vista. So it wants 1 and it wants W. And it is case sensitive. Sorry, should have told you. It wants capital W. And let me show you the best way to probably do this, just so the system doesn't want to go forward. Scroll to the left here just a bit. So what it'll do is, just click right there, it'll save the previous line. And it will,
Oh, sorry.
no, maybe it did that. Okay, so now I need to go to vendor. So all the ones that are internal, I gotta go 1132 again. One capital W, and then just click down here. That wants to
Yeah, I like
pop
the
it back
button.
over here. And then, oh, there it is. Additional Medicare, that's a highly compensated employee, the deduction, we might as well point it there, even though usually nothing will process on that until you make over 200,000, and then it kicks in that.
And it brings me way over to my notes. Why does it do
Capital W, okay. And so, now, so we've taken care, remember these are deductions. We're gonna have to hit the Medicare employee down here, and then you're gonna see FUTA down here, okay? Because we're in the deductions, the liabilities are hiding down there a little bit further south. Now, 401k, were you wanting to do it for 401k stuff? Because now we're in the state withholdings. Washington doesn't have state withholdings, but so there's my 401k. F4, who's your current 401k administrator?
Do we have it under trust services in here?
How is it? Yep. there you go. This is basically imported from Maxwell, so.
Pay type,
One.
that's the AP payable.
And is this the bi-weekly or monthly one? What was this one going to be?
Bi-weekly.
Okay, perfect. He says, this is where it wants to
So we're
take me to
doing-
my notes.
Do you do anything?
No,
with
good
these?
job. So,
You don't have to process because that all goes through the,
So,
does that go to trust services?
no, it doesn't go to
Okay,
trust
then we'll want to
services, it
check.
goes to, yeah, it actually goes, so with the unions, it's, if we don't have the flexibility of putting in multiple or directing certain things to certain vendors,
You do.
you do.
On the union setup, there's a vendor setup on each union. This is a required field. You have to have it there. But
Yes.
That optional field is on the union setup. You probably never looked for it, but when we go to the craft setup, you'd be like, hey, they got the vendor here. So in the hierarchy, the craft vendor, the employee vendor supersedes everything. The craft vendor supersedes the default vendor here. But it must be here, and then you override it on the union or on the employee when you have to have a more flexible vendor setup.
So can you assign certain, so like down below, we have union dues, straight, variable. So if we use that same liability,
I put a dummy one here, and then you go to the union setup and you direct all those things to the union on the union setup, on the craft setup.
okay, I'll have to think about it.
Here, let me show you something real quick. Just hit down here for just a sec. Main menu. So go to craft master. So what she hadn't looked at, because she's focused on other stuff, is that on the additional info here, actually on the info tab, here's the vendor. Click into there. Hit F1 for just a second, please. And now that it knows where to go.
So the way our,
So really what we're trying to say is
so
here,
this little section here,
If
so
it
our
is
healthcare
union,
benefits are
then
divided
put
into
it here.
this
if
8620.
it's not specified here, then we'll go to that PR deduction
So
liability
you
and
can see
grab the
it's
gold.
0102
So
and
some of my
then
companies only
03
have one
and
union,
then
they're okay,
04,
customers or
5,
something,
6,
they can put it there.
Teledog,
But in the
Cobra,
multi-union environment, that's
little
where I must go
section.
to the craft
None of
master
that
and highlight.
resides
But even
here
with
at
Set
all.
up all those craft union
So
deduction
here-
liabilities by union, so it can go to the sheet metal, to the,
But here's-
legislators, et cetera, et
So,
cetera.
so within each union, you have multiple vendors.
So here, all we seem to have is.
The one exception is the fact that you have to report
Even if it
for
didn't report those two.
driven off of the days of the month, and not the check dates. And so if your check date is covering, if your check date covers 3 days from the previous month and 2 days from the current month, then you just report those 3 days in that monthly reporting and not the 2 days.
Yeah.
It's a lot of manual manipulation.
Well, we'll have
Which is
to
what we're
probably
doing
create a
with
crystal
files.
report to do it, because most of the crystal reports run off of like pin date or check date or something like that. They're really not by the day of the week. Not that the day of the week isn't embedded down there somewhere, but the reports by default are normally
So we'll
not
have
running
to
by that.
just,
So yeah, we'll have
I'll
to
keep
figure
this
out.
in mind and we'll have to
So
just.
we don't have to set it up for all unions right now, like I said, maybe set it up for just some of the other stuff, and then once you like that, figure out, how am I gonna use that for the union? Can I use it, or is there
Because I
an
think
easier way
once
to
I
do
go,
it?
once I go in and, so it's strictly at the craft master level that I have to assign the vendors. I don't have to worry about it at the, if I have a change, if I change the rate at the craft class level, will it still only feed from the vendor at the craft master level?
Well, how things retrieve as far as your setup are different from how it retrieves the vendor. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
The vendor retrieval hierarchy is a little separate
Craft
than
master.
just, it'll go the craft deduction, craft master, and then that global deduction setup.
Okay.
So
Okay,
that retrieval
We'll have
hierarchy
to-
is only for vendor access only. So cancel out of here.
okay.
But, so like I said, but if it's what you're talking about, we're not going to want to push those amounts over, because I guarantee you the system will not push it over on a date range.
Yeah,
It'll push it over on a period end date range. And it doesn't sound like you remit on a period end date range.
Well,
You
and-
remit on a daily range. So
and
I
it
would
might-
say
it might
do not
work
set it up
for-
here, because it doesn't know how to do what you're
Yeah.
explaining to me what needs to be done.
And the thing is, I mean, we could potentially set it up for like 32 and 26, because they report on that check date. Local 66, maybe we won't, but okay.
Okay, yeah, that one will work. I agree with that. That could conceivably work, but it ain't gonna do that midweek shenanigans.
Okay.
It doesn't know how to do that.
Yeah, we have to manually do that now, so.
Okay,
Well, good thing it's not your largest union, but.
so I just did want to show you that even though you weren't looking for the vendor in a bunch of places because you were up to your ears in alligators on other stuff,
Yes.
there was vendors sitting there bugging you the whole time on the side wondering, hey, do you want to do something with me the whole time as well? I just hadn't opened that can of worms yet. Okay,
It's a fun can of worms.
that's why I opened it today.
You want to go back to doing
You know, you
already
asked.
asked.
Yeah.
I know, every hour.
She's like, no, I'm going to Australia.
Dawn said you could give
I
it a shot.
know.
There you go. I'll look you up. My boss asked me last night, anybody wants to be a business consultant? I said, well, I'll talk to some people tomorrow, and they will all say, no, I don't want to be one, but,
But Australia, you might sell green on that.
No recruiting.
I know what I don't. I know I don't want to be gone, that's for darn too, you know. Okay,
I
So-
can take a few calls from the beach.
Right.
let's go ahead and bypass that. Now, child support, yeah, we want to do that. Now, F4, do we have, is that like a state of Washington
Right, so
clearinghouse
we do
type
have
thing?
one in California, so is that your child support too, is the California? And-
No, we'd set that on the employees specifically. We could point that to
Yeah, we could check the default
Child,
for
Sacramento,
Washington.
State of California clearinghouse or whatever that.
And then the special ones that go to different states, you can go into the employee.
Thank you. That is correct. That's exactly the hierarchy
I
on
think
that.
it says
level.
Washington State Support, I think it's
One
that
down.
one.
Perfect.
And one,
One again, and is that a weekly thing? Capital W. And then we can just click right over here. It'll auto save above it.
just click
Just
outside,
click on the box. Yeah.
and we're doing the same for the child support too?
Yes. Child support too, the concept behind that is if there was multiple child support court orders that couldn't be processed, or maybe number one was going to the state of Washington,
than one
number
more.
two was going over to California, because they were
Okay.
following me around, state to state.
Yeah.
So that would be
So we're gonna not try the garnishment?
garnishment.
So here's the situation is right now, the one garnishment that we have, we do not have the person actually set up as a vendor. We do them as a non-vendor and manually enter them every week. Would there be any reason why we couldn't set up our garnishment payees as actual vendors?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. They're not set up right now, so it's something we could get set up and then maybe we could flag it on and test it.
Cool. So going down the list, what else would we like to test on? So I'm in the HSA, PPO, dental, medical mode. So we tried to group these logical by what kind of deductions they were. So any ones that we want to test, we would check and point to those vendors at this time. So eventually we'll get down to the bottom for the liabilities so we can put the employer, FICA, Social Security and stuff, but we're going to finish up the setup of which ones we want to test over the next few weeks, months.
Not that we're not going to do anything with the union right now.
Yeah, maybe.
But if you wanted to, I mean, would you want to, for like the now regents and that stuff, is any of that associated with, I mean, those premium payments associated with stuff coming from payroll? I don't think so, is there? Yeah. So then it would just be.
No, I make the payments and then whatever the employees owe us
Okay.
comes out, so, okay.
How about FUTA?
FUTA.
FUTA? You got FUTA? Well, she said, Don, it's messing with my program again.
Where,
A little further.
I like on
So we're almost
the,
there.
Right
there.
Okay.
Click, but it
So now click into there, type in internal, because I remember the thing was Internal Revenue Service.
just start typing that.
Yeah, remember that little trick?
Oh, but I have to go to F4,
Oh, no, do N, just to make sure it's internal, enter,
enter.
okay?
Oh, okay.
Because maybe there would have been intermountain piping or something like that, and it would have snookered you, and you'd have been like, oh, I didn't put in quite enough to get to internal. I just went enter, and maybe have benefit of that. Maybe not. Okay, let's click on FICA Social Security. This is the employer match. She says, Don, I'm about to have it. Oops.
I have had about a habit.
It's zoomed past it.
And I zoomed past it again.
Okay,
What am I doing?
1132. Once you know the number, W. And then the Medicare match is 502 to match the employee. Okay. And then 1132, enter, and weekly, and save up here. Okay, so now we got enough to test. Does that make sense? So now when we start doing stuff, the system will know how to do this. Okay? Because if you wanted me to show you, I've got that guy's check from yesterday, and he's got taxes.
We're not paying that monthly. I mean, I don't know if we want to push that for quarterly. Let's try it on the 941 stuff.
So click the Washington, Suda?
Well, we pay Washington Suda quarterly, correct?
I'm sorry, Washington, Suda?
It's paid quarterly.
Yes, it is. Okay, so do we want to test
Do
it?
you want to set it up to where it's pushing on a weekly basis, or no, push on a quarterly basis?
A liability?
For what the payable would be.
Sure. Give it a whirl.
Be a little harder to test that just because it's quarterly.
Quarterly.
So, Dawn, is there going to be a way to set up our officers, which are currently our two owners, as exempt for workman's comp and SUDA?
I think we already did. I think we created, and we'll verify that setup. One had a 0 rate, and I believe we applied those, so we'll look at the officers. So we did set up an insurance code that did have a 0 rate that was, but we'll verify that that was applied to the appropriate people.
Yeah, 'cause that's one thing that with Maxwell, sometimes I have to go in and do a manual adjustment on that, but I've got it pretty much dialed in now, but in the beginning it would sometimes calculate like him
Yeah,
on
it makes sense to just have that 0 rate one on those guys.
We do have them in as exempt.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
insurance.
because we've filed for exemptions with the state of Washington on both those policies.
Okay,